Good morning. This is Miss George, and today we're going to be talking about density. We're going to look and see what kind of property density is, whether it's intensive or an extensive property. And we're also going to define what density is and see how we can calculate density when we're given mass and volume. So we're investigating the intensive property of density. And if you define density, density is measure of compactness of a material. And so it depends on how close, like atoms, molecules are with each other. It's more than just the heaviness of the substance. Density includes how much space an object takes or occupies. Okay, all substances, including solids, liquids, and gases, have density. And we're going to look next at what kind of property density is, whether it's an intensive or extensive property. Before we get to that, though, I need to remind you guys that intensive property has to do with, does not include or does not depend on the amount of material or matter. So density is an intensive property in the sense that it does not depend on the amount of matter. Okay? Whereas an extensive property is a property which depends on the amount of matter present. Right? So density, we said, is an intensive property, which means it does not depend on the amount of matter present. Density depends on mass. Now, mass is an example of an extensive property. Okay? Mass depends on the amount of matter present. That means I can have a block of wood that weighs 50 grams and I can cut it in half, okay? And my one half would measure 25 grams. So there, mass is an extensive property which is dependent on the amount of matter present. Density is dependent on mass, which is usually expressed in grams, and it's also dependent on volume. Now, volume is the amount of space occupied by an object. Volume is also an extensive property. So a bigger material, a bigger piece of matter would occupy more space than a smaller piece of that same matter. So volume is an extensive property that is expressed in centimeter cube if it's a solid and in milliliters if it's a liquid. So how do we go about determining density? Step 1. You determine the mass of the regular shaped object. Regular shaped object could be a cube, cylinder, sphere, cone, anything that's regular shaped. Okay? So you determine the mass of that object. And step 2 would be determining the volume of the object by measuring the length, the width, and the height in centimeters. And that's how we know that the formula for measuring volume is length times width times height. So when you measure centimeters times centimeters times centimeter, you get centimeter cube. That's why the unit for volume is centimeter cube in case of a regular shaped object. Step 3 would involve using the formula, which I just talked about. V cube is equal to length times width times height to determine the volume of the object. Now, once you have your mass and you have your volume, you're going to do mass divided by volume to get the density of the object. And I've shown the formula at the bottom here and actually used an example. So if you have a 50-gram object which has a volume of 100 centimeter cube, you divide 50 by 100 and you get 0.5 gram per centimeter cube. Gram per centimeter cube being the unit for density for a solid, okay, a regular shaped solid. All right, now what if we are asked to measure the density of an object that is not regular shaped, okay, a solid that is not regular shaped? Then you would use the water displacement method, and I have written out the steps that need to be taken in order to determine that density. Step 1, you determine the mass of the irregular shaped object, just like you would a regular shaped object, by placing it on a balance. Step 2, You add 25 ml of water to a graduated cylinder, all right? And then step 3 would be to slide the object into the graduated cylinder until it reaches the bottom. Okay, so you got 25 ml of water in a graduated cylinder, and you're going to slide your irregular shaped object into the graduated cylinder that has the 25 ml water in it. Step 4, determine the new volume of the water in the cylinder and subtract from 25 ml. So once you place your object into the 25 ml, of course the volume is going to rise. So you do final minus initial. Okay, final minus initial. That means from the final volume you subtract 25 ml. And that will give you the volume of the irregular shaped object. So now you know the mass and you know the volume. So you do mass divided by volume to give you the density of this irregular shaped object. All right, so here's some practice problems that I have written out for you guys to work right now using the formula mass divided by volume. And you will turn in these 2 problems tomorrow when you come into class. Thank you.